Hey everybody, Paul Vojchehoske, and welcome to Nebraska Landlord. I have another legislative bill I want to discuss here today. It is LB 1007. I don't remember which state senator introduced it. I think it's Dungan, but I'm not sure. I will put it down below who introduced it. Anyways, it is 1007 amends two parts of the Nebraska Landlord Tenant Act, 7614-15, 7614-16. Now, 7614-15 deals with prohibitions, things that we cannot put into our lease agreements that require the tenant to either do something or refrain from doing something. So let me give you an example. Some of the things that are listed in 1415, we cannot put a provision in a lease that requires the tenant to forego any of their statutory rights, such as filing a fair housing complaint or calling code inspections, things like that. We can't have those provisions in our lease. We can't put provisions in the lease that mandate that they confess to something or they agree to pay attorney's fees. That's another one, and I see it all the time in lease agreements that landlords put into their lease, and that is a provision where the tenant has to reimburse them for legal fees. You can't do that under 7614-15. And release any kind of hold harmless clause. We typically can't have anything like that for negligence in our lease agreement. But LB 1007 adds one more of those tenant protections. And it's kind of a weird prohibition here. So if passed, we would not be able to put anything in the lease agreement that prohibits the tenant from releasing either the entire lease agreement to somebody or provisions of the lease agreement. When I first seen this, I was like, this is really odd. Why is this a big deal? Why is there going to be a provision that prohibits this? And after I did a little bit of investigating, I did find that there are quite a few landlords and some managers that have a prohibition in their lease agreement that the tenant consider all the terms of the lease agreement confidential. And the reason they put that in there is so the tenant doesn't give it to the code inspectors or to fair housing or to a nonprofit or whatever the case may be. If LB 1007 passes, then all of those types of provisions would be illegal and you could not put them in your lease agreement. Now, LB 1007 also amends 7614-16, and if you're not familiar with that, it governs security deposits, how much we can collect for a security deposit or a pet deposit, and prepaid rents. And this one would be very problematic if LB 1007 passes. It says, under the proposed change here, if a landlord receives any kind of prepaid rent or prepaid security deposit before the tenant enters into the lease agreement, meaning before they sign the lease agreement, if at any point that tenant, after they give you that money, says that they refuse to sign the lease agreement, then you would be required, it says you shall return all that money back to the applicant in full. And why this would be very problematic for the industry is a lot of us practice where if somebody says they've been approved for the property and they say that they want it and they come in and they put that deposit down or that first month's rent to secure it, but they're not going to move in for another week or two or three or whatever the case may be, they put that deposit down to hold it because we're taking it off the market. And if LB 007 passes, we could still do that, but we would just have to know that there's no obligation for the tenant to then sign the lease agreement. And if they don't, then we would have to refund it in full. And there are no loopholes to this. There's no way out. There's no way we could say you're going to waive your right to do this because we took it off the market. That's exactly what it expressly is designed to do, is to prevent us from keeping those monies for a perfectly legitimate thing, as we're doing now. They wouldn't be able to do it in the future if LB 1007 passes. So just thought you might want to know about that. Again, I'll leave a link to the actual legislative bill and the language down in the video description, and a link if you want to opine with your state senator. That's all I got. See y'all in the next video.